utilizing our resources. We need to start utilizing these resources more efficiently. Might it be energy, might it be sort of minerals, any of the resources we have. And the only way we can do this more efficiently is either we're going to optimize the consumption of them, or the production of it, or the distribution. And I think IoT is the solution to be able to do this, because you start understanding on how much waste you can sort of eliminate. I talked about there's still 3 billion people which don't have energy access. If they consume this energy in the same way we do it at the moment, it's going to be a disaster for the world. So we need to become more efficient.
But I think a lot of that as well, Cedrik, it comes from education, understanding the value of the data that you're collecting.
Yes.
And how do you intend to educate industry to allow itself to become more sustainable?
The good thing is you need to align business and social needs together. And by having data, by understanding that at the moment I'm producing, I don't know, in our gas turbine 20% more NOx emissions. By understanding that if I use technology, I could reduce the emission and therefore have a better environment, that has a benefit.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at trains, for example, trains run at 80-85% efficiency, so people tend to buy 110 or 120 trains to be able to run them back and forward. If you show them that with data, just putting data on how often, for example, the doors open and close, and you could predict that these doors will fail up front, that you can increase the availability to 99%. People have to wait less, people have, you're going to utilize less trains, you're going to be sort of more efficient. So in each industry you need to look at the KPIs which drive that industry and see how can you bring value which additionally has also value for society. I hope that makes sense.
It absolutely does, it absolutely does. Thanks so much. Yeah.
So, I mean, I hear lots of numbers about how many devices are going to be connected, you know, millions and billions of devices to be connected. Do we really need everything connected?
Depends who you ask. You ask my wife, she says no, absolutely not. You ask me, I'm a nerd, I say yes. So somewhere in the middle is the truth. So the question, I mean, the reality will be is we will connect things, and I don't know if you listened to the stage talk I have.
Yeah.
We cannot envisage the future, and we cannot envisage the problems we have in the future. I think that we will start connecting things which will bring us value for, I don't know, how much am I actually walking around, or what is my heart rate, things which are obvious at the beginning. But over time, the things which are obvious will sort of expand, depending on the need I have. So back to your question, you don't have to connect everything, but you will connect the things which you need to improve either your life or the environment or the state. So that's what I think will happen.
And with everything being connected, you've got that big security issue.
Security and privacy issue.
Yeah.
So that's the big counter argument which we need to make sure that we build capabilities to, especially, I mean, Germans are extremely protective of the privacy from their laws, but I think people will become more and more sort of aware of what elements do they want to protect versus what elements do they want to share on a private level, but also companies. So the big differentiator I was saying for MindSphere, for example, is to say that a lot of production companies want to keep their data. They don't want to share it with some Uber application and platform, because that's the differentiation they have.
Yeah.
So I think we will, over time, I have 4 kids, and my 90 or 20-year-old, what he shares on his Facebook page, I'm not sure that I would have ever done it or my wife would ever approve, but he does. But the reality is also he will learn that the internet never forgets. So the question is at some stage he will learn this privacy element, and I think this awareness will permeate throughout society, and we will make those conscious choices as they will do in enterprises. So that's the first one. On cyber, it's going to be a race. It's going to be a never-ending race between the hacking and the protection of this hacking. And the key question is we always need to think about where, before we were thinking of we're going to protect against being hacked, we now need to build capabilities to see how quickly can we react, because we will be hacked. And it's a different mindset. So it's a mindset of continuous monitoring and optimization too.
I like the idea of the smart fridge being hacked. What could possibly go wrong? The fridge inadvertently informs you that your milk is low when it isn't.
But if you look at what happened with the big, you talked about the smart fridge. The problem with a lot of the IoT devices which join, especially consumer ones, which join the internet, is that they're much more hackable, or often more hackable than other devices which are hardened. So there was a big outage at the German telco operator. I mean, we're talking millions of people which were outed because you had a DDoS attack which came out. They hacked these devices, put the DDoS attack there, and they were basically sort of emanating the information across the environment. So the thing is when your fridge becomes a Trojan, that's when you should be scared. Yeah. It's not that your milk goes bad, except that's bad too. But when your fridge starts attacking the central banking system or the energy system, then when you need to protect it.
And I think the security aspect. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of pharmaceutical industry leaders and healthcare professionals about the way the IoT is going to change that particular sector. And I know that's not what we're focusing on this year's event, but I think healthcare is definitely moving into the IoT sphere. But I think that the patient data, obviously, that's critical data, is a huge concern for this industry.
Especially, I mean, we do healthcare. I mean, Siemens is one of the biggest sort of healthcare providers, and my colleague Michael Zen, which runs the healthcare sector, this is the big thing. The reality in healthcare is that actually, to become better, you bring data together. So, for example, if you look at Windsurfer, which basically is developed the DNA sequencing. He basically, his new activity is he takes DNA sequencing and he takes Siemens MRI, puts it as big data together. So when I'm scanning you, I can tell you that you're going to be ill before you're going to be ill, because I have your DNA information. So there's a lot of new things which could happen. I don't know if you want to know.
That predictive data, I think, is so important.
But you need to be so secure, because then what does it mean for insurance? What does it mean for other things?
And
this balance is a balance.
This is the big fear, I think. This is kind of a hindrance at the moment, and we need that reassurance to pass on to the industry leaders to say it's going to be okay. But I don't think we're sure ourselves it's going to be okay.
Absolutely, but we're building, as industry, we're very aware that we're building this capability. I mean, Siemens just got voted the most trusted company in the Forbes ranking, and we're very proud of it. It's because we're thinking, what would it mean to do certain things?
Absolutely.
So we have a lot of also, I think the buzzword is business to society, but we have a lot of societal responsibility also as we're bringing these things closer together.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Do you have any more questions? Oh, I'm sorry. He's got more questions.
So, with the view that you've got this one network, everything being connected, so presumably one network, you see 5G helping in making that happen?
So I'm a techno nerd, just you need to know. I was 16 years at Cisco, and before actually, I know that you have a telecom background, but my first job ever, I'm a mechanical engineer, my first job ever was to define circuit switch data in GPRS on GSM, so that was where I come from. So I've been following the whole sort of 5G thing. 5G is interesting because I don't think it's going to be one network. I think it's going to be thousands of networks which are interconnected, which will sometimes be islands, sometimes be connected. And if you look at 5G, all the previous networks were very hierarchical. I mean, if you look at GSM, 3G, 4G more and more, 5G will be a very separate. In order to have the speeds you need you will have a lot of picocells, small cells. You will have a lot of sort of sub networks to reach basically the connectivity, but also the response times which you need to go forward. So I think 5G will play a huge role, but it will look very different and act very different than previous networks. I don't know if you agree, but that's my personal take on it.
It changes every 5 minutes. You read another story is going to do this, you read another story is going to do that, you just think, oh, let the dust settle, and when it's settled then maybe everybody has a realistic view of what's going to do.
You should look at, because there's 5G, but you should look also at the whole narrowband technologies like LoRaWAN, Zigbee, etc., which are very different, which their idea is, I want very little connectivity, but my battery life will last 10 years. And wherever I'm on the world, I can send you some data. So you're going to have, the world's going to be much more complex and heterogeneous, I don't know if I pronounced the word right, than it is in the past.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Really great talking to you.
Absolutely.
So great to meet you.
Great to meet you too. And, that's a pleasure.
Are you following us on Twitter?
I am now.
Oh,
you convinced me that you're asking absolutely
fantastic.
the right questions. Do you have your card?
Yes, I do.